We are live. A little different setup. Tevis is going to be freezing a bit, but not too often. A little bit different time. He's doing a little bit of traveling. I believe Antarctica, so not so good Wi-Fi or anything like that. Tevis, how are you?
I'm pretty good, Ben. I'm in a super remote location, so if it freezes up, I apologize. But next week should be better because I'll be in an actual city.
Yeah, next week we'll see if we can make it. I've got, of course, a Robin Hood Summit and another thing too, so would love to be able to do bootleg, but we'll see if we can figure out a time. But regardless, guys, welcome tonight. A little bit different time. Thanks for being with us, especially for those that are just coming in. If you're new to bootleg or it's been a little while, we have a list of topics that we usually will start off with today. Tesla, some energy topics and discussion, and also crypto. And then in the second half of the stream, we get into your Q&A. So if we see some questions that relate to some of those topics that we're talking about, we'll usually hit those earlier. Otherwise, hold on and we'll get to those in the Q&A time period. But yeah, Tevis looks like a teen girl gamer. So, I mean, you could be worse. So,
Yeah, I think the headphones are precautionary because I don't want to just. It's like midnight here, basically.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's a crazy time. So thanks for making
So
this
let me
happen
turn this
anyway.
off.
So let's start off with Tesla first. There's a lot of Tesla stuff to cover. I guess first, let's talk that probably the biggest one is Master Plan Part 4. Did you have a chance to look at this?
Yeah, I mean, look, my thoughts on Master Plan Part 4 was that it was super high level versus the other master plans were more tactical and concrete, and they actually outlined how they plan on getting somewhere. Whereas here, a lot of my takeaways were that they highlighted a destination and a vision, but really, from a tactical level, there was not a lot of meat on the bone. And it's kind of interesting because it comes at a time when, I mean, I've gone on record to say I think there's somewhat of a lull in Tesla's catalysts, and there will be until Optimus reaches some production. We can also talk about delivery numbers because that's interesting too. But I think Master Plan Part 4, like what I don't want is I don't want them to rush it, especially because there's pieces of the previous master plans that are not necessarily complete to a full degree just yet.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you. Let's take a look first on just like a recap of the master plan. We'll talk about this. I didn't like it nearly as much as the other master plans. I think that it should have been more refined and more measurable. This isn't. So, but they did a good job of some things, including kind of recapping here what their previous master plans are. This is probably a little bit hard to read this part, but Master Plan 1, as a reminder, came out 2006. I wasn't even tracking Tesla at that point. The goal was electrifying transport. Of course, people laughed. They were like, this is audacious. It's not happening. Electric's never happening. Can't do it. Well, it happened. Now, does that mean there's 100% electric out there? No. These are goals that you hit certain thresholds, you move on to the next master plan while still doing what you're doing before. Master Plan 2 was 2016, so 10 years later, integrating clean energy generation and storage. And so, people are like, well, Tesla's maybe a car company. And at that point, they weren't even profitable. But like storage, nah, that's not happening. The solar stuff, no, it's happening. And we'll, of course, talk about energy later on, too. Plan Part 3 in 2023, accelerating sustainable energy economy. And then this slide is, like you said, Tevis, it's like everything almost.
Exactly.
Sustainable abundance is the term. So that's the biggest criticism that I saw most people as they looked at this. They're like, okay, great. So what's the plan? Because using the word plan and just having like we're going to have sustainable abundance, it's kind of too big, and this is beyond Tesla. Plus there's some, I don't know, there's some, like, a lot of philosophical stuff. This honestly, it reads to me like maybe what Alex Karp would have written, CEO of Palantir, when he was like a freshman in college, maybe. Like it's cool, it's neat. It just doesn't feel like it's very refined. So they say innovation removes constraints. They talk about some of the human history. Technology solves tangible problems, and then this part right here, autonomy must benefit all humanity. I like that. Greater access drives greater growth, and I think that there is one more here. All worthwhile journeys are long. They begin with a first step, and then I was like, okay, great. What's the next step that they're doing? Well, they just go through their history basically. So they just say, hey, today we're on the cusp of a revolutionary period primed for unprecedented growth. And this time it will not be a single step, but a leap forward for Tesla and humanity as a whole. The tools we are going to develop will help us build a kind of world that we've always dreamed of, a sustainable abundance. By the way, this just makes me think that Grok helped to write this.
Probably. It's very fluffy.
I feel pretty badly for those that actually use the M-dash on a routine basis before AI, because now people are probably flagging them for AI and stuff. And I very rarely use it. There is some technical aspect that I need to use it for in my dissertation, and that's it. And even then, I always feel like iffy, because I'm like, are they going to think that I'm AI? But you have to notate things in a certain way. But anyway, by refining the fundamental building blocks of labor, mobility, energy at scale, and for all. Man, that's broad. Did you catch? By the way, nice Jenga set right there. Did you catch any specific concrete plan in there, Tevis, or goals? Anything measurable?
I think the best way to judge this, of what we're saying with this being very fluffy and high level, is to look at previous master plans. If you go to part 2 or part 3, for example, you can highlight exactly tactical steps that they're taking as to how they want to scale. And master plan part 3 was all about the vertical integration from the resourcing step all the way through. It was very much based on raw materials and lowering like the tonnage costs, and how that was going to translate to the cost of goods sold and the margin improvements. And then this is like, well, everything lives in one ecosystem. And like, I think everybody knows that. Elon's given plenty of talks on that. They've done investor days where they've covered these topics. Even this week, he talked about how Optimus is going to be 80% of Tesla's value. He's talked on earnings calls around how he thinks Optimus is going to be the biggest product ever, and something that will make the car business look like a drop in the bucket. We have all of the hype stuff. What we need is an actual plan on when are you going to reach mass production. What is that going to look like? Are you going to roll out to businesses first, and then you're going to roll out to households, so on and so forth? And I think that's completely what was lacking here.
Yeah, this was philosophy. This wasn't a plan at all. I did like some aspects of it. One of those is talking about basically they're not wanting to make it so like just the elite benefit, but it benefits all humanity. Good, that's awesome. They talked about I don't remember exactly how they phrased it, but something about basically giving your time back. And I think that's the angle that they should have pursued with Master Plan 4, because that's what Tesla ultimately is about with the autonomy, is giving people their time back so that they're able to do and enjoy more of what they do and enjoy. They worded it a little bit more crisp in there. But you can see that with, full self-driving, that you suddenly, like, as that becomes real full self-driving, it gives you your time back on the road. Like you can take a nap, you can work on a laptop, you can play a game, you can read a book, you can knit mittens if you want. Go crazy. And then with Optimus as well, the design, the purpose, of course, there's going to be a commercial side of this as well. But for individual humans, it's like, okay, as long as it's affordable and accessible for a lot of people, and for some people it won't be, but if you can afford a car, conceivably you can afford an Optimus bot. It basically alleviates whatever pain points that you have around the house. So if you're like, hey, I hate doing freaking dishes, I love cooking, but I don't like cleaning up after myself, and I hate lawn maintenance, and I really, really loathe ironing, and like, you basically have a built-in maid that does whatever. Now, you can always hire that out with humans, and this is not designed to replace humans. And I like that they basically emphasize that a number of times. But that's where they could have said, okay, we are looking to alleviate toil, something along that line from Master Plan 4. And the way we do that is through autonomy. in two form factors, and maybe there's additional that they spin out. But of course, on one side, the robotics, and the other side, the full self-driving. And that's then they could set some measurable goals. They could put some timeline on it. This is like way, way, way too big and broad. I don't even know where they begin. I'm sure that they have some targets and things that they're working on. But if you go too broad and it's not measurable, you're probably going to miss that mission, especially when it's not really like this is a endeavor that takes more than one company. Yes, Tesla is a lot more powerful as a company than they were back in the previous master plans, even Master Plan 3. But like, I don't know. That's why I was excited that it came out, but I was a little disappointed with the way it was framed.
Yeah, let me give you a better master plan. And this is stuff that is all tangential to what Elon has said before. Master Plan Part 4, reinventing what the economy is or what GDP is. Because from all the time saved, from all the cars in the fleet, all of a sudden you have productivity increases and you can work towards measuring that, like from a math perspective of what GDP unlock does it have. From all the robots that you expect in the next 10 years, all the way down to all the tasks that the robots can do. Once you integrate Grok, once you integrate a software layer, this robot doesn't need to be limited to blue collar work. It can also do white collar, jobs as well. And so, what does then the GDP production look? What does the economy look like? What does the cash flow of a country look like? I think that is a much more interesting topic. Like, if you're going to stick to the philosophical layer, you can add some actual math behind it. Hey, here's what we produce collectively, and here's the amount of time that we use from logistics point of view, going back to and from work. Here's the amount of time that we spend collectively doing housework that can now be automated. Here's the amount of time we spend collectively, so on and so forth. And then you go from there and work backwards as to what feasibly can economies look like, only powered by Tesla, or at least Tesla leading the way. And I think that is a much clearer picture as to how they can command a $10 trillion valuation versus, an integrated ecosystem, which many businesses are working towards. But I think this one is unique because it is at the crossroads of robotics and AI.
Yeah, and that's what you said is very measurable too. This is from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. They do this on an annual basis on household activities like chores, and like Tesla could measure things like this just within the United States as a proxy, ultimately for the world. But usually, countries like the United States, these get deployed at scale first, and then they go elsewhere. So total household average hours is just 2 hours. It does depend on who you are and what you're doing as well. But yeah.
2 hours daily is a lot of time.
It is.
You, like, multiply that by the number of working adults, like 18 to 60-year-olds, let's say, and you have a ton of hours there. And then add a blended cost for your time, let's say, I don't know, $5 an hour to be super conservative. And all of a sudden you have a number that you can work backwards from.
Yeah. And like some of these you might be looking at and be like, man, I freaking love doing laundry and I love that. Like, great. Like, you don't have to stop doing that. But maybe you hate food preparation and cleanup or interior cleaning. I don't know many that like that, but this is kind of broad. But yeah, there's a lot of toil in here that people would, if they could choose to not do so and it still gets done, they would love to do that. Now, I like this comment too from Erudition account. And another pretty simple plan, just get global approval to change infrastructure to solar, battery, nuclear. You can't really do that at the global level. It's always the local level, especially localities. But that could have also been part of their master plan. They mentioned energy in the master plan 4 times, but it was mostly from a historical, this is what we've already done and are still doing context, rather than, but this, I mean, like, energy is one of those big constraints. And so this master plan 4, I think, is looking at human labor, that there's a finite number of humans and a finite ability to actually do things, whether it's just because of labor, because we need to sleep at night, because there's so many of us, we can't just build new humans out of thin air. It's basically saying that this abundance comes from being able to spin up these bots and automation to the point where we can make stuff at scale at a much cheaper rate, and so then that becomes more accessible for many other people as well. But there's still a big constraint there, Tevis, of energy. And of course, Tesla is an energy; it's an energy company. But that's a massive thing that I kind of wish that they hit the nail on. Have you seen this movie, Elysium? It's been a while. There's a lot of dystopian science fiction out there, and sometimes, well, so dystopian science fiction stuff has been around actually for in different forms, not like movies and not as much fictional books, but for a long time. Do you recall the name Thomas Malthus? I think I mentioned to you before.
Yeah, Malthus, he basically said that there was going to be like a tipping point to population, and then it's going to go backwards. Like in the 1950s or so was supposed to be the tipping point. Then they had the Green Revolution, where they basically got GMOs and started producing food en masse, and Malthusian economics just went out the window after that.
Yeah. And so like the mass starvation, of course, never happened. We went from a place where people were fearing scarcity to actual abundance as a product of the Industrial Revolution. And so what Tesla is saying is not wrong, like with the master plan, that if autonomy is able to play out the way that many expect, there is going to be a lot more abundance. There is going to be, a lot more that's accessible for average everyday people, not just Americans. That's a great thing. But there's still constraints. I don't know. It sounded a little bit too Star Trek for me. So Brock says, I get a chuckle when I hear people theorize that's a future in robotic space as if Tesla is going to capture anywhere near the TAM. I'd argue Amazon is far ahead of Tesla in this sector currently. What do you think?
I mean, Amazon already has 1 million robots deployed. I think they have 1.5 or 1.2 million employees, something like that, globally across their entire facilities. Like 80% of them work in their like redistribution plants, essentially, in their factories. But it's getting to a point right now where in the next year or so, robots are going to be more than actual human employees for Amazon. And so when you look at the robotics advancements, and not to mention all the form factors, because Amazon doesn't have so much humanoid robots. They have robots that are catered towards their tasks to transport boxes from point A to point B, or to basically be a crane to go in and pick out boxes from shelves and whatever purpose is. And so they're more limited and range bound in terms of the possibilities of the tasks that they can do. But if you compare from a sheer numbers perspective, Amazon has been doing it for years, whereas Tesla is still, I would argue, in that theoretical research phase, like similar to like Boston Dynamic, right? Where they have a handful of units, and those units are used for training. It's not mass production level ready yet.
Yeah, it is a very different. Amazon might like at some point sell those, more commercially. They're not made for individual consumers. Versus humanoid robots are, and the reason why, of course, you can have a lot of other different types. We have Roombas. Well, we don't, but many people do. And robotic lawnmowers, I've seen those. They're pretty cool, but humanoid robots work incredibly well in an average consumer, an average person's home, just because the home is designed for humans. And so a humanoid robot can conceivably go and do anything that we can do, versus some little robot that is the Amazon way is basically we want automation. And so let's build our warehouses around the bots. Now, that's a little bit oversimplification, but you can't do that in a consumer setting. And so if robots are going to have a place in individuals' homes, and this is like years out, Sled mentions it's a ways away. It's a long ways away from individual consumers seeing this. I don't think that we're that far away, though, necessarily from seeing this on a commercial level. Like, this isn't maybe 2026 is a little bit early, but 2027, I think that we start seeing that really ramp up in the commercial space and sector. Not necessarily all, humanoid robots. I think there will be some, but a lot of, what Amazon is doing and others say are like, okay, this actually works really, really well. Now, some of it's more noticeable than others. I remember it's been like 4 or 5 years ago. I think I was walking through maybe it was a Walmart or a grocery store, and instead of having a person man the mopping machine, it just automated and it goes around. And I think it was Walmart that did it. They have a lot of automation there, so we're going to see a lot of that sort of thing where you just don't even think about it. But yeah, humanoid robots probably take a little bit longer. It's just a little bit more complicated. So
Well, I mean, yeah, to Roy's point, like I don't see it being so far away because, like, at the end of the day, what is the difficulty? When you think about the scope of the all-purpose generalized tasks that a humanoid robot could potentially do in a science fiction novel or movie, whatever, most of that is software. Most of that is understanding the intent behind the request or the prompt and then executing that in the proper way. Other than that, from a hardware perspective, it's all motor skills. The robot has to know how to stand up, sit down, move. Like the fingers and the hands are going to be the most difficult parts because that's where you have like the most joints, essentially, where you have fine motor skills. But once you nail the motor skills down, then everything else really just becomes a software understanding the request and executing that request. And then all of a sudden, you unlock all of the general purpose tasks. And so I think robotics is going to get a massive leg up from AI.
yeah, these go hand in hand. They both need energy though, and that is a constraint for now. Now, before we go to energy, you might have some other pieces of Tesla news too, but I thought that this one was interesting. I don't think I'll play the video, but it was within this video, and Jay Leno's Garage was the episode. Sawyer linked the whole thing right there. Notice that Lars noted that FSD take rate was increasing a lot, and specifically on the S and X, which are very niche models, the take rate's like half. That's unheard of. That's fantastic. I've seen a lot of, it just seems like there's this dichotomy where half of the people that have never tried and they don't know anybody that's used full self-driving, they think the technology doesn't work and that it's all fake and fraud and smoke and mirrors. And they'll watch something like Mark Rober's test that we talked about months and months ago, and they'll be like, aha, see, it's terrible. And then those that have actually used it are like, okay, this is very good. It's compelling. It's excellent. And I want this. Like if, there's a cost to it. So not everybody's willing to spend $8,000 at once or even subscribe. $100 subscriptions, not pocket change for everybody. So, but it's a great piece of technology. Do you think that that's going to continue to increase, Tevis, as in other models, not just the S and X that are elite, or is that something that you think that we're kind of toppy on?
Not necessarily. No, I think it's going to increase, and here's why. I think, and by the way, I sent you something in the private chat. If you can cue that up, um, the reason I think it's going to increase is because when you look at robotaxi, it's expanding its radius, its geofenced area. And that's going to do a couple of things. Number one, it's going to add validity to Tesla's underlying software with every successful trip that they do. Number two is you're going to have more adoption from people because you're going to have a higher level of awareness. This was just the other piece of news around the prediction market now expecting Tesla to deliver over 500,000 vehicles in Q3, which would make it their best quarter ever. Generally, we've seen Polymarket and Kalshi and other prediction markets, Robinhood as well, front run a lot of news, particularly rate cuts and also all kinds of different pieces of news. So it's something to keep an eye on for Tesla knocking their numbers out of the park for this quarter. But the point here is that with everybody that buys a Tesla, and more importantly, with everybody that rides in a robotaxi as that geofence continues to expand, and they actually can physically get over that fear of full self-driving or that hesitancy towards full self-driving, I think that is going to increase the take rate on the subscription product for, if I have a Model Y and I don't want to really turn on the full self-driving, if let's say they do so many of these trips, robotaxi gets approved nationwide, it starts to become something that starts to displace Uber. Then I'm going to say, well, okay, there's a lot of legitimacy here. Everybody seems to be using it. It's something that I shouldn't be hesitant towards. Let me just try it. Let me go on it for 1 month and try it out. So I think there is a snowball effect when it comes to that sort of thing.
Yeah, and the sad thing is a lot of people are not willing to try it, and it revolves
Yeah.
around a lot of it, people's perception of Musk. I posted this earlier today. It's actually from a survey that's last month. It's back in August, but I always have concerns with this sort of thing because this right here is really just a proxy for whether or not you like Elon Musk mostly, instead of like what you think the better technology is. They did in the survey itself define some terms, but I'm not sure that they did for LiDAR, that people had an understanding of what that is. They did define full self-driving, although the definition's a little bit weird too. But yeah, most people said, 70% said you got to use both. 3% are like, nope, just cameras. 27% not sure, and that's a fair enough answer. Now, what shocked me, half of the people, I think it was in this one, yeah, when initially presented, that's going to be impossible to see. When they asked these people, like, and they said, this is what full self-driving is and does. Do you think this should be legal? About half of the people said it should be illegal, which is shocking. Here's how they defined it, though. Tell me if there's anything wrong with this definition. Tesla's full self-driving is a set of features that help with driving. It can change lanes, follow directions, park itself, and obey traffic signs, but it is not fully self-driving. The driver must always pay attention and be ready to take control at any moment.
Definition like that, I'm not surprised that half the people said it should be illegal. It's like saying like, oh well, here you're buying a weapon and you should always pay attention because at any point this weapon could backfire and you can have a household incident. And people are gonna be like, well, I don't want that. Like it's just you're throwing the disclaimers up ahead of time, and that's obviously gonna bias the people who are having that experience. And yeah, I think to that comment's point, like if you need a definition as to what LiDAR is, I don't think you're qualified to answer a poll surrounding LiDAR's legitimacy.
Yeah. And they did have some that I thought were a little bit more fair questions of like, would you try a robotaxi that's just on cameras or that has LiDAR or one that has both? And there's a lot of people that are like, nope, I'd never try it. And it's like, well, that's fine. I think a lot of those people might be surprised over the years as they have. What tends to happen is there's always early adopters. And as long as things are going well, they're like, this is awesome. I get in a car and it's clean, it's nice. I don't have to do the small talk or anything like that. I had bad gas and I was letting it rip and could do that freely in the back seat. It's great. Don't do that though. But now the craziest thing to me though, in this entire survey, they asked the question of gas prices. So gas prices, energy is, we're going to go next and we'll talk on this in just a bit. But as energy prices, what's that?
What a segue, by the way.
Yeah, thanks. Well, I've been leading to it. So, but they said, they asked a question and like, okay, if gas prices go up, would that change the equation? Would you be more or less interested in buying an EV? Now, nobody in their right mind should be less interested in buying an EV if there are high gas prices. So 27% of people said, oh yeah, if gas prices continue to rise, there's a point where an EV makes a lot of sense for me. I'll buy it. 13% said if gas prices go up, I'll be less likely to buy an EV. I don't understand. It's fine to be like, I will never buy an EV. I don't care what the gas prices are. That's fine. No difference. Gas prices going up and like, I was thinking about saving some money, but now I'd save some serious money. That's just too much wealth to manage. I'm not going to do that. Like, what's wrong with people? I don't know. Yeah, I think it's this. That like, it's really showing bias if somebody's like, if this starts making too much monetary sense for me, I'm not going to consider it. That means that they just hate Elon Musk. And frankly, he has limited Tesla's TAM with some of these products just because some things that he did, which right or wrong, like that, it's kind of the nature of it. Hopefully that fades over time. But yeah.
Yeah,
And this is fair. Like some people like gas. Some people, like, I remember talking with Steve a couple of years ago. He was talking about how we'd miss oil changes and stuff. It's like, that's not a thing, but I'm sure somebody out there is like, oh man, oil changes. I just feel so manly and great when I do it. But yeah,
yeah. I
this
mean,
is
look, I think it's convenience, right? Like it's the familiar path that they know, and as a result of knowing it and having done it before, they trust it, right? And I think I don't know if you've ever read this. I think it's Jeffrey Moore. It's called Crossing the Chasm. It's basically like he talks about early adopters of a technology, and like with any technology, it's going to go very slowly at first, and then all at once because humans mirror in their behavior, and a lot of things spread through word of mouth. And even with this, right? People are hesitant to change. They're naturally reluctant to it. But when they see their neighbors doing it and when it becomes normalized in their eyes, they're going to be more willing to actually try, at least try at the very, very least, right? And so I think that normalization process is very slow, but now I see Teslas on the street all the time. And in 5 years, I'm going to see Teslas on the street all the time with full self driving, maybe without a steering wheel. And I think that's going to go a super long way to improving those adoption numbers because you would be shocked at how many people don't even know about Tesla and how many people still don't even if they do know, they don't care. They don't care enough. It's just another car on the street. They might know a couple of facts about Elon, but like that's it. We are so far deep into the rabbit hole of knowing about this company, about the leadership, about all the little pieces of news that like we are so unique in that sense. If you go out on the street and if you ask somebody, hey, like, did you hear about full self driving? They would have no idea, right? So I think that full self-driving robo taxis are going to be the gateway drug to people increasing the take rate on FSD in their own vehicles, and as a result, increasing the propensity to buy Tesla. And if not Tesla, because of their political views around Elon, then an EV just in general.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's there will be some that don't want Teslas, don't want EVs. That's fine. That should be people's rights to do that. But yeah, that acceptance is only going to grow over time, not just for Tesla, but also EVs. Used to be a time when my daughter and I would get really excited because we were up in Virginia in a not rural location, but smaller towns where Liberty's at. And every time we'd see a Tesla, we'd get excited. And I knew like some of the drivers too. So that was part of it. But now we're in Houston too, but like anywhere you go, there's a bunch of Teslas. And it's like, even with Cybertrucks, it's like, oh yeah, there's a Cybertruck. Cool. Versus like the first time you saw it, you're like, wow, that's so awesome. They're becoming more normalized.
I used to tell this story, and I've told it multiple times over the years through live streams and recorded videos, that how I really got to building Tesla to be my largest position. At one point, it was over 50% of my portfolio, is because I would just ignore the stock price and I would just DCA on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. And how I started to play a little game where in 2019 and in 2020, I said, for every Tesla that I see today in my morning commute to and from work, I'm going to buy one share. And back then it was like, $100 or so to buy a share. Actually, I think it was more expensive because it was pre-split. And
Mm.
and then I might see like one Tesla every other day kind of thing. And it very, very quickly, within a matter of months, Roy, not years, months, got to a point where I'm like, oh, I have to tally this up on my notes app so that at the end of the month, I know how many shares I need to buy to keep true to myself. And then a few months later, I can't do this game anymore. Like it's just unfeasible for me to do this game because I just see too many of them. And like that was the sign that, okay, I'm paying actual attention to how many I'm seeing on the street, and that number is increasing. And
Yeah.
so I'm like, okay, there's something here.
I love that. I had no idea about that. So, but yeah, that was before you became a billionaire. So little bit more constrained on the money there. But and this too, like we're now a 2 Tesla car family. Um, it's yeah, superchargers, no problem. City apartments, probably not ideal. For me, like it would take longer with a gas vehicle versus a Tesla, just because I don't charge it anywhere else other than like road trips, which we don't take too many of, maybe like twice a year. The rest of the time, it's just city driving. I pull it in my garage, I plug it in, save a ton of money, save a bunch of time because I'm not. Well, I still go to the gas station, but it's for filling me up, not the vehicle up. So, um, there was one other thing with Tesla. I'm not going to think of it. Whatever it was probably an awesome point, but we'll just move on. So, any last Tesla topics? Otherwise, we'll shift to energy.
I mean, look, I still hold 7% of my portfolio in Tesla, and I think when I see news like this, or when I talk about stuff like this, I still like I get FOMO where I'm like, oh man, I wish this was 20% of my portfolio again. I don't
Yeah.
think I would be comfortable even with this news to say 50% or 40% because that's just I wouldn't sleep easy at night. But it's definitely bullish. I think, Elon nonstop tweeting political stuff, although like it's not that I disagree with the political stuff that he's tweeting. I just think that just because he's doing it, it's not great for a couple of reasons. Because some people will not align politically with it, number one, but number two, more importantly, because it just shows where his like attention is, and it's not on Tesla. And then it's countered by these stories where their production numbers on prediction markets and Master Plan Part 4 and all of these things make it so I get FOMO again. I don't know where Tesla's going to go, and that's why I still hold 7% of my portfolio. I think that it is squarely in a no man's land for me right now. That if it were to go further down, the valuation would make it so compelling relative to their catalysts that I would have to buy back in heavier. And if it were to go to higher, I would probably start cutting more.
Yeah. Yeah, there is a price where I start adding a lot, but not here for myself. It's an amazing company, but it's kind of like I think that fourth module of their mission statement, their mission plan, there is encapsulating where Tesla is. That they have a vision, they're just not maybe quite sure how to get there. If they are, they're holding that very close to the vest compared to where they were in the past. And it's so broad. So I'd like to see some refinement, but yeah, Master Plan 4 is great. Hope it works. I don't know how because I didn't share that, but it's an exciting company. I like to hold it. If it falls a bunch, I'll grow it. The next topic, energy. So this is one that I posted about a couple of times, and I got an in phase back in April where I was like, I'd rather lose money in another place, and would have lost a lot more in phase. So it actually worked out quite well. In phase, by the way, we're not really specifically talking about in phase. Solar, I'd like to talk, and other energy forms too. But in phase is more than just residential. They did roll out commercial inverters. They do have a couple of commercial products now. But that's very much in its infancy. First Solar, and of course Solar Edge might be as good or better candidates. And Tesla, of course, is in the solar business too, with their energy storage specifically. That's geared towards commercial, but they do have a residential component. So these stocks largely, if they have anything to do with green energy, have been written off for the dead. And yet we can see now some of this is COVID, inflation, where everything went up, and there is a little bit of a chart crime here because it's not at a zero axis. So it looks like it's just going crazy. But sure enough, in most localities, and actually, if you look at the map, I don't have that graphic here, but there's in the Northeast specifically, massive increase in energy prices. Not as much where natural gas or even nuclear are a big part of the equation, but this is a big increase from 2020 through 2025. Well, this is 2026 gets off right there, and so the Kobayashi letter, I guess they say it right. They're like, hey, AI revolution is so massive that electricity prices are moving in a literal straight line higher. Energy is a new limiting factor to AI growth. And I think maybe not just for AI, but the economy at large. So are you in any energy place, Tevis, or are you thinking about it, or just prefer to invest in what you know?
I'm not in energy plays. Does LNG count?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm not in energy plays.
Matt
I'm
is going to slap you next time he sees you. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at Next. I want to get into Next at some point or another. Matt and Chris both were like, "Hey, if you want to get into Next, it's like a super no-brainer, but also don't buy calls in it because it can take years to pan out with their trajectory." And so yeah, like I'm looking into them. I want to get exposure there. I think partially it's a little bit outside my zone of competence or whatever zone of genius, whatever you want to call it. Like it's not my field, and so I would have to have a high initial like research time period for it and or rely on other people who are experts in that field. And so just I naturally don't gravitate towards those plays. I more gravitate towards like software as a service because that's literally what I do on a day-to-day basis. But I'm not against it. I agree with the macro thesis, and it's something that would be very interesting, particularly on the LNG side. I think that um, I haven't done it yet.
Yeah. And I don't own any yet, but I'm thinking about it. Uh, Kozlik said energy is a must now, especially high density energy, uranium. That's quadruple U. It's up like 78% this year, I think. DNN, forget solar. I think that's a mistake. I think the market is doing that. The issue is this, and I've shared. I'll just share one of my posts again. It makes it easier. Um, that you need power now. Like that's the thing is like demand for power is vastly outstripping because the United States has not spent time developing our energy infrastructure for a long time. China, they're probably completely fine, but it takes time to scale up some of these. So nuclear reactors, there are smaller modules that you can spin up, but it takes a time for regulation. It takes time to build these things and make sure that they're safe. And so this isn't something where you're like, you know what, let's get a nuclear reactor running next year. You cannot do that. That is impossible. It takes years and years, in some cases, decades. Thankfully, regulation is changing a good bit. I actually have a relative that works for a nuclear energy company, and he's very excited too. Natural gas, it's like, well, natural gas is cheap. That's great. We got a lot of it. You know, it's almost a byproduct at this point of oil. Well, the problem is you can't just take natural gas and instantly convert it to energy for cities or data centers. You need turbines, and natural gas turbines are sold out, I believe, until 2030 is what I've heard. Coal takes a lot of logistics, and we're going to need, probably everything. Wind turbines, they just don't work everywhere. There's of all the clean energy out there, that's probably the least efficient, the least effective. It like seeing these massive wind turbines, they were the propellers on them be discarded in all these fields. It's a kind of a mess. There's a lot of places where it just doesn't make sense at all. And hydro, I don't know if there's going to be any large hydro projects anywhere else in the United States. Other places of the world are probably more open to it. And so the issue is like, well, what do you do? Like there's other options out there too, like geothermal, but I mean that's so niche, not really in the United States. That's not going to work. So what do? Solar. You need solar. Solar is the quickest to scale up out of any of these. It is a lot more efficient than it was in the past. But the problem is solar has been left for dead for a while. Regulation has gone from basically embracing all green energy and trashing oil and gas to the opposite. And so it's kind of been left for the dead. Now, this doesn't mean just at the residential level. Like basically, I think it's going to be several different factors that end up making solar very attractive. One is, of course, the higher rates are, the more attractive solar becomes. Because if energy prices, they won't do this in the short term, but let's just say hypothetically, if your energy price at home did a 5x and solar systems cost about what they do today, a lot of people would be considering solar. They'd be like, okay, well, if I'm saving money, why not? Interest rates are going to fall down. For residential, that's meaningful. Commercial, it's not really that meaningful. And you also have you have such demand on the grid at this point that it's not just commercial only that needs the application, but also residential, just to take some of the demand off of the grid. but also commercial products for solar you can spin up fairly quickly as well. So my guess, and push back on me if you think this is maybe not correct, is at some point we're going to see energy prices like that chart continue to increase as demand scales and as there's a lag between all these other projects that they're spinning up, which will be great maybe 5, 7, 8 years out from now. Well, we need energy now. We need energy tomorrow. We need energy next year. The only way you can really get that at scale is solar. So I expect that there will be pressure, partly because we'll see this on CPI. Like that's a big contributor to inflation is energy, and it affects everything. It's not something that I think that the government wants to see. So I would not be surprised if we see a pivot, not taking away incentives from any other form of energy factor, but just saying, okay, we need energy, period. Let's make sure that we get it done. Doesn't matter what the form is. Coal, fine. Solar, fine. Let's go. What do you think?
Oh, lots of probably uninformed thoughts, but I don't disagree on the solar point. I think that there is obviously limitations of solar. I think solar is one of the best for modular scaling because the costs decrease with scale over time, and like the declining panels or turbine prices with scale. You have some I forget what the term is there, but it's cheaper as a result of the standardized components. I think that, I mean, coal is still the tried and true, right? Like it will give you good output in terms of the power, and it'll be cost effective, and you have it in abundance, and it's like the tried and true solution. Obviously, it's not clean energy. I get that. Um, I think nuclear is also an interesting option. Yes, it takes time, but you could possibly find some alpha there. And the reason is because the perception globally is still that nuclear is so horrible because they have the Fukushima and Chernobyl top of mind still. But when you actually look at the advancements and the safety, and more importantly, the output that nuclear provides, that could be a really interesting energy source. And as more countries start to adopt nuclear, then and you see Trump talking about this. I mean, France was doing a project recently where they want to go nuclear because more and more countries are going to be forced by their constituents to look for clean energy sources. And from a sheer output perspective, from an efficacy point of view, like one nuclear power plant will get you so much more than solar or wind or hydro. Like you would have to build so much to compensate for just one single plant. And yes, it takes time, but like that's that's the real answer from a country perspective. I think Oklo is an interesting company. I know it's been exploding recently, and I don't know anything really about them other than they do like nuclear. And so, if I were to look at energy, there are two places I would probably look. Is I mean, if we're having LNG in there, I would look at LNG first. And the reason is because some of these countries need energy immediately, and it's literally like you have the refineries, you have like it's in the ground, like out and sell it pretty quickly. Um, and I think the fact that it's not clean is a selling point for a lot of these countries internationally, in the sense that like they don't want to pay a premium just to have the clean energy. Like if India needs energy immediately because their towns are going to lose power, I don't think the leadership there is going to be like, oh wait, but what about the environment? Like we
No.
need the solar panels. No, they're just going to buy more barrels of oil. And so I think there's always going to be a market for it. So LNG is number one where I would probably look. And then number two is probably nuclear, simply from what I was saying around countries wanting to have a long term clean energy plan that produces high efficacy output that can cover entire cities. And so I think that the real answer is nuclear there. Solar is good from like a B2C perspective for people to do their houses and whatnot. But other than like smaller municipalities and townships and maybe certain provinces, like I think that the bigger you go from a bureaucratic perspective, the more and this is an assumption, right? The more that they would go towards something like nuclear as opposed to something like hydro or something like solar.
Yeah. The hard thing is, if solar is just bypassed and say, well, no, we're not going to do it, period. Then you get to a point where you're going to have what's been happening as far as the consumer energy price. That's going to accelerate as far as the cost over the next few years immensely. That'll drive inflation immensely, and it takes time to build out these things. I agree. Nuclear long term, it's great that we actually have a sane nuclear policy right now, because we didn't for a long time, and it made no sense. Now there's places where it's kind of funny because like Japan is a place where you'd be like, well, maybe nuclear doesn't make sense there because volcanoes and tsunamis and earthquakes. And Europe like has almost no natural disasters at all. France still very much embraces nuclear reactors, but a lot of places, including Germany, they're like, you know what? It's too green, it's too efficient, it's too nice. Let's instead get a whole bunch of Russian oil. Okay, that's weird, but so yeah, I really think that solar has a place in this. The stocks have been left for the dead. Long term, I agree with you. Nuclear, Okla is one of those that was on the cusp of me selecting it in that stock draft thing, just because I'm like, hey, I think this is going to do well over the next year. It would have done okay. It would have done better than a lot of my picks. Getting destroyed there, but I agree with Brock here. Like, there's so many ways of playing this future energy demand. He mentioned, transformers. Just when there's a gold rush underway, there's a lot of beneficiaries, and so there's a lot of ways to play it. One of those that I don't think I'll beat the. I'll go to this again here, but Air Test Systems is one of those ways that I'm playing the AI gold rush. But there's dozens and dozens of ways, and if you figure out a way before the market does, that's great. Let's talk about this. I see Leonard posted on that, Austin Harrison, and here is what happened. Alphabet stock, Google soars over 5% after a judge rules that the company will not have to sell Google Chrome. So that's went down less than 1% and then just went to the moon, all-time high. Congratulations, Google shareholders. Thoughts, Tevis?
Yeah. It almost hit 230. It's up over 7%. Like, I think, yeah, I'm not surprised. It's kind of crazy how these judges have this insane ability, if you really stop and think about it, where a judge can rule one thing and a company's market cap can just add like, $400 billion or something ridiculous. I mean, we'll see what it trades at tomorrow, but it's quite wild. Um, yeah, I don't. I think the through line here that I take away, that's like, I mean, obviously we could talk about the takeaways with regards to Google and Apple and dominance and what that might look like and so on and so forth. But like, if we look past that, I think the interesting takeaway that I would have here is the role of these judges as more and more we move towards oligopolies. You have very deep pockets within the Mag 7. You have um, consolidation of power because shareholders are still going to want high levels of return, and it's going to be increasingly difficult to get those high levels of return. And as a result, what's going to happen is these Mag 7 companies are either going to buy back shares, which all of them are pretty much doing. They're going to increase into new verticals to basically play into more spaces to get higher growth, or they're going to have tuck-in acquisitions, and that's where judges can rule that there's anti-competitive nature. And whether it's an acquisition or a collaboration or partnership between these companies, I think that it's going to be really interesting because then you have all of this like downstream implications. You have judges in the judicial system and what role they should or should not play. And here the Delaware judge comes to mind. You have lobbyists and the role that lobbyists of Google and Meta and big tech would have in politics and political decision making and that level of bureaucracy. And so it further entrenches these companies into the entire fabric of all of society's decision and growth. And I think that's the interesting takeaway when you extrapolate a couple of years out with this decision. Like, it's crazy, man, that you can have trillions of dollars of market cap and they still move like insane amounts on a yearly basis, like 40% up on a yearly basis. Are you kidding me? Like, it's great. Like this efficient market hypothesis is so, like, I'm so not in that camp at all because
Yeah.
markets are wild, man.
Yeah, I don't actually know anybody that ascribes to it that's been in the market for very long. I'm sure that there's a few, but it's not. Now, this is the other piece too from Evan. Judge rules Google not required to end payments to Apple and other partners for preloading Google products. So that's really good for Google. They would have gotten money back. I don't think it would have been like the worst thing in the world if that hit. But Apple's also up on the news because they're like, okay, Apple, they're very reliant on Google for the technology, and that's going to continue to increase. Now, there was one other piece of news there too. Judge bars Google from exclusive contracts for internet search. So you can't, and I think that that's fair enough. We're basically in the contract writing. They can't tell Apple. They can say, okay, let's pay you to have it preloaded and ready to go for people, but they can't say you are also prevented from searching using another alternative, which there are not many of. Like Perplexity is an up and rising challenger, but this takes the leg out of some of what Perplexity was trying to do. And frankly, Perplexity, like their browser Comet, is built on Chrome technology. So Google was going to be fine no matter what. But yeah, it's up for good reason.
Yeah, it's
Um,
crazy to think about like the mutually assured destruction of these companies because the level of collaboration they have with each other just increases so much more. And then they take more of the pie relative to smaller players in the space. Like if Google is a preferred browser on Apple, or if Safari is like the default browser on Apple devices, or, like just these partnerships that they do with each other give preferential treatment to companies that already have the deepest pockets and the best resources available. How is anybody else supposed to compete? And I think that AI is going to be the next battleground that it comes to that, because previously it was like, cloud providers with the GCP and AWS, and then it was like internet browsers and just capitalizing that search volume. It was smartphones for a while. It was app stores. And I think AI is going to be the next thing. It's like, what is going to be that LLM of choice for people?
yeah. All right. Let's get into wait, did we didn't talk crypto yet. Do you want to talk crypto first or jump into Q&A?
Sure, we can. I took a
I,
position in BMNR, if that's what you mean, or you want to talk Bitcoin.
yes. Yes. No. Yeah, let's talk BMNR because I got also that too. I think finally Tanner released the after hours content, so I'll try to upload it after this. He's always late, guys. He always is. But if you guys are members, you'll be able to watch that on Tevis's channel or mine. We talked a lot, and I mean a lot, about crypto in general and BMNR, stable coins, lots of things. So tell me about what got you in BMNR. I guess remind us real quick on what that is, why you got in, and what your expectations are.
Yeah, so BMNR has been a name that's been floating around for a little bit now, and I see Brock is in the chat, so thank you to Brock for basically bribing me to take a look at BMNR. BMNR, I believe, was a crypto miner, and now they're essentially like an Ethereum treasury company, similar to how MicroStrategy is for Bitcoin. I think there is also a Solana treasury company, which could be an interesting play because all of these are going to catch a bid, right? Because they're following that tried and true playbook that MicroStrategy is doing with Bitcoin. And so BMNR owns a whole ton of crypto. And then they also got Tom Lee as essentially their spokesperson and cheerleader. And I think Chris brought up an excellent point in the members only live stream, which if you are a member to mine or Roy's channel, then definitely check that out. I think that was the best episode we've done in a while that eventually got me into BMNR immediately. Whereby, yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to sound like a shill, but I would pay to watch that episode. So, I'm not saying you need to do it on my channel. Tanner has the same thing. Tevis does. That like Chris made a compelling argument, like compelling enough. I'm like, why have I haven't been overlooking it. I was like paying attention, but just for the will portion of my portfolio, the swing position, I'm like,
Yeah,
this makes absolute sense. It's something I don't mind holding, and I
yeah,
understand, which is important for that. and B, like the yield there is really, really good, and C, it's trading under its NAV, its net
So
asset
that's
value.
the other thing. Yeah, so that's the other thing. Um, I think so. The point that Chris made, just to finish up that last thought, was that Tom Lee is essentially the connector, the maven, the person who will funnel so much capital into BMNR through the deals that he will broker and facilitate. And Tom Lee, I think, was the main reason, or one of the main reasons, that this took off like this, and it's like a immediate darling of the retail investment community as a result of Tom Lee. Now, I think the NAV value is really interesting too. So basically, one of the reasons that Robinhood pumped so hard in 2022 was because it was trading for like, 2x their cash position or something like this. A lot of businesses will have like what's their book value or their cost of all of the pieces, if you sell those all tomorrow. And in the case of a treasury company, it's the cost of whatever the treasury is in. So in Ethereum treasury company, you have to take a look at what do they have cash on hand and what are other assets are they holding, that if they were for any reason to sell those assets tomorrow, what could they get for those assets? Well, in the case of BMNR holds $635 million in cash. They hold 192 Bitcoin, and they hold 1.86 million Ethereum. And so when you do the math on that, it comes out to about 9 billion net asset value. So just their cash, and if they sold Bitcoin at today's price, and if they sold all their Ethereum at today's price, they would have $9 billion, like in a nutshell. Well, the thing that got me really interested in BMNR is that they're currently trading for $7. So you have $2 billion. That's a delta between what their assets are worth trading for, and discount essentially to BMNR. Now, that's the equation. I think the second layer, what are they doing about it? So basically, how would we trade BMNR? But basically, whenever BMNR is trading for a discount to their net asset value, they can just go ahead and buy more shares and essentially lower that float because they have a ton of cash on hand. Whenever BMNR is trading above the net asset value, they can just dilute, essentially issue more shares, get more cash, and buy more Ethereum, thereby increasing their net asset value. And I apologize if I'm lagging, like, but essentially that yeah, that's the playbook, right? It's if under NAV, buy more shares; if over NAV, issue more shares and buy more Ethereum. Now the hook here is that Ethereum obviously has to be going up, because if Ethereum is going down, then similar to other treasury companies, like it's going to be very difficult for that. Well, all of a sudden, we are in alt season, and Ethereum is going to be the network that a lot of these rails are built on, like the next evolution of financial services is built on. I actually have a video of Tom Lee talking about this, and maybe we want to play that, Roy. I'm not sure, but that is one of the best explanations that I've had on Ethereum and the utility value of Ethereum, and as a proxy then on BMNR. And yeah, Tom Lee is talking his book a little bit, but maybe if we can play that, that might be interesting.
Yeah, if you want to link that to me in the private chat, that's fine. The crux is basically, and when he explained just the stablecoin piece, I was like, why have I been overlooking this? Because I've been talking about stablecoins in the year of the stablecoin for a long time, but somehow I was sleeping on Ethereum. So at that point, I rectified that. I bought Ethereum, and I have the Ethereum that I'd like to have. I'll add to it here and there. But I have the most Bitcoin. I have a good chunk of Ethereum. So Ethereum, the way that stablecoins work is they need a chain to be able to run on. They don't just magically create their own chain or anything. They're level 2 assets. And so there's a number of chains out there. There's a bunch of them, actually. One is not like all the others. So Solana, yeah, it's faster. It's a little bit cheaper as well. It's heavily centralized. And I know some Solana bulls will push back against it, but like if you compare it with Ethereum or Bitcoin, even Cardano, it's incredibly centralized. Ethereum is very decentralized, and you also have a very strong developer community. There have been more crypto projects built on Ethereum than anything out there. Nothing comes close. And so both of those things basically spell good things for the Ethereum ecosystem. And like you said, they have some yield because of staking. And as a result, even in those times when nothing is moving, nothing is changing, they're still making a little bit. Now, that's not a lot. And I'm happy owning Ethereum directly. I wouldn't want to just do full port and treasury. But their goal, their stated goal, and they're doing it well. Tom Lee made this argument in Amit's interview, was that their goal is to try to increase the amount of Ethereum per shareholder in their company. And they're doing that effectively. You can see that NAV continues to tick up. Let's see. Let me share this. I got to remove here.
Yeah, this is a great video.
Share tab. All right, it's 3 minutes, and we'll just play it. We're demonetized. I guess we'll lose.
Yeah, we're gonna get demonetized for this. I'm sorry, and you're welcome to people watching.
We'll lose out on the $2. It's fine. Thank you, guys.
Well, Ethereum differs from Bitcoin. Actually, Ethereum was initially a fork of Bitcoin, by the way, but with an added feature, which is smart contracts. So what they wanted to do on Ethereum was to say, let's use blockchain technology, not just to store value, but now to store information. Ethereum is as a smart contract platform, actually also has something called the EVM, Ethereum Virtual Machine. So you can run entire programs and conditional contracts on Ethereum. And Ethereum itself is 100% reliable. It has not had a single moment of downtime since inception. It's one of the few blockchains that has never been down. And then if you needed to do more things on Ethereum, you can build what they call layer 2s on top of it. So Ethereum is essentially infrastructure that now is catching the attention of two industries. The first is the financial sector. The stable coins became really viral, a breakaway product for crypto. And that's like the ChatGPT moment. There's $250 billion worth of stable coins. The vast majority of those are minted on Ethereum. Then the Genius Act was passed by this administration and this Congress, and that greenlighted the proliferation of stable coins onto the blockchain. So banks are now building stablecoin products. That Treasury Secretary Bessent thinks that could get to 4 trillion. That's exponential growth, burning gas on Ethereum. And then we have Project Crypto, which is the SEC wanting Wall Street to build on the blockchain. Now, all of that collectively, from a Wall Street perspective, is like 1971 for the dollar. And what I mean by that is, in 1971, the dollar went off the gold standard. So in 1971, the dollar became synthetic. And gold was what people bought as a hedge against that synthetic dollar. So you had gold as the trade, and that would be the Bitcoin equivalent. But actually, the synthetic dollar is what created the rails for Wall Street to build all their future products. The futures, curves, derivatives were all because the dollar was a synthetic product. If the dollar was backed by gold, Wall Street would be still a very small business. Well, Wall Street now is going to be building its entire infrastructure onto the blockchain. And the blockchain they're choosing is Ethereum. So this is the 1971 moment where Wall Street is essentially capitalizing on tokenizing the entire world onto a blockchain. That's a huge opportunity. The second story arc benefiting Ethereum, though, is AI, because now we're moving towards an agentic AI world, but with real products. Like AI is principally been trained on like internet and social media, but it hasn't been in the real world because it hasn't ingested us as we moved and physically moved or even had independent products. That's a vast amount of new information for AI models to ingest and store. But then now you have to be sure that all the instructions being sent back to the robot are proof of the originator. In other words, you need a token. I mean, LLMs use tokens anyways, but now you need like a token that interacts across chains. And that's where AI is going to build on Ethereum, because you essentially need what they call proof of human. We need to prove that this lawnmower got a real instruction from another chain or another vendor. And so that is all.
All right. And Brock also says, consider this, Tevis, investing in BMNR is investing in a company that uses leverage to increase their ETH holdings via staking and such. We as option sellers are able to add additional leverage. Degens like you, thumbs up. And honestly, it's I don't know, this type of the way that the BMNR is structured makes me a lot more comfortable to hold than MicroStrategy. I never got in. There was a time when the NAV was undervalued the market cap, and I remember that well. And I was like, why am I not going more into that? And the real answer was, Robinhood was my crypto proxy, and I frankly I want to also own Bitcoin directly, and I don't have near enough Bitcoin, so I'll continue to add to that. But here, like, this makes perfect sense for me in my wheel portfolio or my swing portfolio. So yeah, I had been doing a lot of HIMs and willing that back and forth over the last few months, but the premiums have just not been great there. And there's more concerns with the company over the short term. Over the long term, there's a question, and we'll get to in the comments on it. I think it'll be fine. But yeah, this really cool. Any additional thoughts from you on BMNR?
I subscribe to that Tom Lee video where he's saying, like, hey, it's 1971, and if it goes synthetic, Wall Street essentially has to adopt something. And there is an entire school of thought that Wall Street is going to adopt Solana instead of Ethereum, and that's fine. That's a bet that you can make. I think there's pros and cons to either, but from everything that and especially if you listen to Tom Lee, because he's basically like the face of Ethereum in 2025. He will talk about the utility value of the Ethereum network. And if and when Wall Street does in fact adopt it, then this thing is going to be much higher than it is today. And as a result, BMNR is going to be much higher than it is today, because to Brock's point, it is basically leveraged Ethereum. And so from an options perspective, like, I bought shares and I wrote covered calls at 60, and I got paid like $2.50 for those. And then I also wrote cash secured puts today for 40, and I got paid $3 for those. So, I made a good $5 or $6 of, profit. And if this thing goes to 60 and I lose my shares, well, hell, from 45 to 60, plus the premium money that I made on top of it, I made an excellent return in a month. And if it doesn't, if it goes lower, well, then great. I get to own more. So to your point, Roy, I do think it's something that the premiums make it really compelling as well to trade around it, in addition to having a long-term position.
Yeah, I don't think that I will have a long-term permanent position unless it just happens to be that way in BMNR. What I'm thinking of doing, and this again is, I think on Friday I did this, but also ended up doing BMNR. I do it Friday. Did we do a? Oh, we did the SoFi Weekly on Thursday, didn't we? That's what it was. I was like, how did I buy or write the put? Because I just did one last week, and with all the rest of my swing portfolio, I did it this week as other puts expired. So I've been thinking of taking the profits from that strategy and just putting that into more Ethereum. That way, if it runs, great. Ethereum's probably done quite well, and I've made money. And if I get out of my BMNR and I make profits on it, that goes into Ethereum. Like, it just, I don't know. It's there are drawbacks in the strategy. Nothing is foolproof. Nothing is perfect. The other thing too, which he didn't get into here unless I missed it, and you may have said it too, but it went over my head. So institutions cannot, with some exceptions, invest directly into Ethereum or Bitcoin. Now, there are some that can, but a lot cannot do that directly. Also, individuals, at least here in the United States, that have Roth, that have IRA accounts, they cannot buy the coin directly. Instead, you have to do a proxy. And a treasury is the closest proxy you can get to. Miners are, there's some okay ones, but there's a lot that are just garbage and terrible. And I think it's a terrible proxy. You can invest in, Coinbase or Robinhood, and that's kind of a proxy. But if you want as close as you can to the actual asset, the treasury itself is the vehicle. So I think that this is also going to see a lot of institutional inflows, and we're seeing it. Last week, there was multiple headlines on inflows for Ethereum actually outstripping Bitcoin inflows as well. Maybe we'll see that with Solana. I don't like Solana quite as much. I do own some Solana. But yeah, the strategy makes sense, and it's Tom Lee. Like, how can you not like it? Wow,
Yeah.
nice. YD says, I got 1K shares of BMNR today. Let's start. Yeah, I only have cash shaker puts, so I own nothing other than if those fill at $40, great, and I'll wheel on the other side. Here's one more. BMNR aren't currently staking their ETH either. This reduces the supply when gas fees hit and pushes their price up all at the same time. That's a good point. Okay, let's get into the, unless you have any other thoughts on that, we'll get into the Q&A period. We'll probably make this a little bit quicker because it's like 3 a.m. or something where you're at Antarctica, I think. So I've got a few starred ones here, though. All right, so we'll go with this one first. Brock asks, what, if any, techniques approaches do the two of you regularly implement when selling options? Or are you guys just winging it with no strategy in place? Curious. Tevis?
Oh boy. I think that, okay, so generally, if it's something that I don't want to get caught in, then I'll take a look at what the volatility is, what the chart looks like, and what the delta is, and I'll try to stick like at 15 delta or somewhere around that range, maybe a little bit less if I don't want to get caught. But particularly, I do less for covered calls because I don't want to let go of some of the shares. And I'll stick with a shorter time frame, like 1 week, 2 weeks out. More often, what I've been doing, because we are like in an uptrend, and that's been working well for me, is I'll do in the money cash secured puts. So like SoFi, for example, which was going up, and it was going up every single week, and you could clearly see that it was in an accumulation pattern and it had reached price discovery. Like I got away with a couple of weeks selling in the money cash secured puts with those. Yeah, I think like the cash flow chat is like at the end of the month, it all gets accumulated out. Like the 15 deltas, the profits from those get mixed in with the profits from the in the monies that I do, which are like 70 delta, and I don't get caught on. Or if I do get caught, then I'll immediately turn around and write covered calls on them. Sometimes when I want to get into a position immediately, I'll do like weeklies at the money. I've done that a couple of times on Nebius. But generally speaking, I'll stick between like a 25-ish delta, 25 to 35 delta, which is more aggressive. But covered calls, it's less than that. It's maybe 10 to 15. On my long-term portfolio, it's like 10, but on the wheeling portfolio, it's like 20. So I'll just say 15. And then for cash secured puts, I'm a little bit more aggressive with those because I only write them on stocks that I want to hold. So I'm doing BMNR and Duolingo and Nebius. Those are the ones I currently have open right now. And those are 3 positions that I want to be in any like heavier anyways. I would, there was a period of time where I was writing cash secured puts on stocks I didn't want to own. I got away with some. I got burned with some others because I'm like, I don't want to own this. Why do I have like a massive position? And so right now I can write a little bit more aggressively because like, let's say I write $30 cash secured puts for SoFi today, and I'll get $5 or $6 worth of premium. And in 2 months, I own SoFi at $30, and I've capitalized the $5 or $6 as like profit essentially. God forbid I own a stock that I've been talking about for like 5 years at $30 at an inflated price. Like who cares at the end of the day, because I am bullish on that stock going higher than $30. And so I'm like, that might be a bad way to look at it because, I might not be maximizing the, full opportunity cost of that money. But if it's something that it's a stock that I want to hold, I can sleep easy at night, regardless of what price I hold it. Obviously within reason, right? Like I don't want to buy SoFi at 100 because it will take me a while to get out of that. But you get my point, right? That's the buffer.
Yeah, for me, I've got 2 different strategies, and you really need to figure out what your strategy and goal is. Like if you're a TJ, the wheel deal, if you're like making your money from selling options, you have to be more aggressive. You can't do a 15 delta or something like that. Or I guess maybe you can, but you sell it way further out. And there's a lot of different things that he's doing, like Iron Condor and stuff that I'm like, okay, I just keep it simple. So for most of my option selling, it's the cherry on top of an already fantastic stock. I don't buy stocks like Robinhood or Palantir because the covered call premium is so good. I think that's a mistake. I got into those because I'm like, hey, these are ridiculous companies, and they're going to do well over the long term. And as they ran, now I did get burned by a number of covered calls that got underwater in Palantir, and I rolled out the best I could and ended up just, they were too underwater. Robinhood, thankfully, I didn't have that issue, although it did run really hard at times. So since my mentality with those is I don't really want to sell those shares, but instead it's just cherry on top. Like this week, I just sold 120s for Robinhood because they also have they're releasing, this is gold month, so they're releasing something tomorrow in gold month, and it's entering into their summit next week. So I'm being more cautious than I usually would with Robinhood. I do also get used to on those sort of things, like learning how to roll out and be comfortable rolling out some of those positions that I want to preserve. But usually those are at the 15 or 10 delta, which is kind of a proxy. This is not what delta actually is, but you can think of it in terms of like a percentage, a chance of whether or not it's going to run past that. Not exactly that, but I mean, it's a proxy for it. What it really measures is the amount that leap or that option will increase for each dollar increment. And then gamma increases your delta by that amount for each dollar increase as well. Now, the other side of it too is I have a swing portfolio. I'm there to make money, not hold long-term necessarily. Like swing, it's not day trading. I don't do that. I'd be terrible at that. But I might own something for a few weeks or a few months, sometimes a few quarters as well. And occasionally some of those swings, like for Robinhood, become a long-term thesis where I'm like, hey, I love this company. I want to be in it long-term, and that's fine. But in that sort of environment, since I'm just looking for gains more than anything, I'll be a lot more aggressive there. Those are almost always in my tax advantage accounts, just because I don't have to pay short-term capital gains tax, which is a huge pain point here in the United States. It's something to keep in mind. So it just depends on the strategy. All right, two related questions. Oh, you have one more? Oh, okay. What happened with HIMSS besides it being down again? Need to sell covered calls, get rid of some shares. Related, that's the other time when I'll sell options very aggressively usually when something has run, like if the thesis is gone for me or I need the money, I'll just sell. I won't mess around with it. But HIMSS, has done this a couple of times where it's just spiked really hard due to a short squeeze. And I won't do it like initially into the run. I'll be careful. But once like HIMSS is like, let's say hypothetically, if it starts running and it's trading at $20 a share more, right? So next week it's like 61, 62. I will sell covered calls for a position that I don't mind getting rid of. I'll keep some of the shares. I'll be conservative, but I'll be like, yeah, if it's 62, why don't I just sell 65 covered calls? I'll either make a bunch of money from the premium and also money from the stock selling, or I'll just get the premium. So, but there's that question. And what is HIMSS short-term thesis? So on the HIMSS news, let me throw this up here just so you can see it. Move from stage, and usually Tevis is controlling all this, but not this time. Breaking news. This is not like directly related to HIMSS, but it does have an impact. Judge dismisses Eli Lilly versus Willow Health lawsuit. Court ruled that Lilly failed to provide concrete damages, proof, rather zero evidence of inherent danger from compounded GLP-1s. That's the big piece right there. And the case was filed April 23rd. So any thoughts on HIMSS overall?
Yeah, I just sent you another link with just more details around that lawsuit. So basically, this sheds more light into the personalization point of view, which is one of the main things that HIMSS is arguing as a compounder with their potential lawsuit risk with Novo. The judge said that personalization does not mean that every compounded medication must be different for every patient. It instead needs only to be tailored to the specific goals of the patient, which is exactly what HIMSS is doing. The judge said that Willow Health met the bar for personalization. The judge also said that there was not sufficient commercial injury to Lilly to justify the lawsuit. In other words, you didn't lose enough money to make this even worth anybody's time, really. And so the idea here is that when you think about a novo potential lawsuit, this really takes the bite out of a potential lawsuit, because all of a sudden it opens the door in a much bigger way for Novo to lose that lawsuit, given the precedent that was set by this judge on their definition of personalization. And that Novo lawsuit was a big reason, probably the main reason, that HIM's short interest is as high. And the big short-term bear thesis right now is the fear that after they cut their partnership, that Novo is going to be suing HIMS. And so if that is off the table, then all of a sudden it's much more interesting, because then the other bear case in the short term is, can they sustain their growth rate with the introduction of testosterone and other products that are coming later this year? And they have some tough comparable periods and whatnot, but it's all stuff that they can manage internally. From an external point of view, the lawsuit was the big one. And after this result, I don't think it's that big anymore, any way you slice it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I thought that it went down massively for the results in the quarter, for what was in the 10Q, and also from all those little guys being sued. Now, this right here, what it establishes is precedent. Now, it's not a one-for-one necessarily with HIMS. I think Novo Nordisk, if they were to sue, they could argue and say, well, this precedent shouldn't be binding, because you see the scale, you see the audacity in which they've gone after whatever they want to argue. Like, you've seen them throw around some nasty shade previously, but that is basically their burden to prove in the court of law, versus the defense for HIMS would naturally be arguing, saying, well, look, this was already decided in court. There you go, judge. And judges are careful to overturn precedent. Now, I don't think that this is necessarily biting to every single one, but I think, Tevis, if we see the same sort of treatment as it relates to Novo Nordisk and all those little guys that they sued, and all of a sudden they're being dropped, or you're seeing judges saying, yep, precedent, it's already there, we're good, then like that takes the risk from, there's some risk from a lawsuit for HIMS, but it's not huge right now, to basically none at that point. Like, you can always sue anybody for anything, but really the question is, how effective will that lawsuit be? How draining will it be? And how punitive would the charges be? So that's really good for HIMS. I actually didn't see that second post there, so that was a great one, Tevis. Couple more here, so we'll go a little bit quicker. What about Bull?
Yeah, I think the company looks good and the product roadmap looks great. It's already something that's been proven for Robinhood. I just got completely turned off on that Yorkville Partners deal, and as a result sold my very small position that I had accumulated over that past couple of weeks, simply because you are, to some degree, the company you keep. And if they are, in fact, an amazing company with great prospects, then they don't have to keep that kind of company. And so it didn't really smell right. And I was like, you know what? Like, let me not take the chance on this one.
Yeah. The beautiful thing is there's a ton of great companies to invest in. I'm like, well, didn't work out with Bull. Like, I didn't lose money, but yeah, they did relaunch crypto today, so something to keep an eye on for sure. I'll throw this one up. I'm going to disappear for about a minute and a half to 2 minutes. So, Tevis, I saw you making some comments on this. Myself, for Duolingo, I own a small number of shares. It's not even enough to sell covered calls on. It does look like a falling knife. It can fall a lot more. And so I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do long-term, whether I'm keeping the position, making a long-term thing, if it's a swing that just did not work out at all. I like the company. I don't think that it's dead. I don't think AI or Google is going to displace it. But is it like my strongest, highest conviction as far as a play? No, especially at this price.
Yeah, what I'll say, and I've made several posts on this recently, actually, a couple days ago, saying that the technical chart is pulling it down to the support area, which is around the 280 range. I mean, if you look at the chart, it's pretty easy. Like, I don't need to be a master technician to see that. I think that it's not gonna, hold until it gets to that range, and it's pretty much at that range right now. We're at the top end of it. I think we're going to see lower. I think we're going to see maybe 285. For me, that's the area where I think it can consolidate and then bounce. And as a result, like that's how I'm going to play it. I'm going to be writing cash secured puts around 280, 285 because I think that's the consolidation zone. Same thing, to what Roy said. I think Duolingo for me is something that I really like and I really want to have a long-term position in, but I'm also pretty new in terms of investing in it. And right now it's something that I could absolutely treat as a trade and just sell on it. It has great premiums, but I think a determining factor for me is going to be that product day. That's going to be on September 16th. I'm going to be trying to stream that. And if I can, probably will be streaming it. And that's going to be interesting because if the company does announce, new product expansions, new subjects, advanced roadmap with regards to AI and how they plan on being AI first, like I think those are all going to be indications for me as a product person to be like, okay, well, I'm more bullish on where this company is going, and I think that they can sustain their growth rates, and AI is not going to disrupt them. And insert all your bear cases and keep holding my shares. But if not, and if they don't really say anything, and I'm not really feeling it because I'm seeing a lot of as I'm doing more research is my point, then I can reduce my position and keep it as a long-term hold as a small piece, or I can just cut it all together and treat it as a trade.
Great thoughts. I heard you say this a couple of times. You said the word new, maybe not this new, but Billy Jack asked, should we buy new now or wait? I won't give you advice as far as what you should do because I don't know the situation, but I can share what I've been doing. I've been in new for a while. I've owned new. I was very impressed with the strength of that report. And of course, the market obviously is too, because it keeps going up. Even on days like today, it was up a little bit, at least earlier. Maybe it's about even, but really, really a lot of strength, and especially in Mexico and Colombia with some of the depositories as well. Brazil is always going to have, there's always going to be some geopolitical risk, but basically, if I didn't have the position I wanted in new, and I've been adding to it here and there, and I'm very comfortable adding to it at this range too. But if I didn't have the position I wanted, I would add more here. All right, so one more non-crypto question and then 3 crypto questions kind of together. Any interest in Fubo? None for me. Thank you. I know Jeremy was in that a while ago. I had a family member that invested in them, but yeah, it's not something I want to get into. You? Same? All right. And then right here, 3 related questions. Why invest in crypto stocks instead of crypto itself? SBET thoughts, and why not SBET over BMNR?
Okay, so I can take the first one, and then maybe you can chime in because I know nothing or next to nothing about SBET. I think I'm very much in the camp that you should invest in the crypto versus the crypto stock, because like that's the underlying asset. And like for me, the majority of my crypto holdings, the vast majority of my crypto holdings is in the crypto itself. Like 10% of my portfolio is in Bitcoin, and I have about 2% in Ethereum, and I think 1% in Solana, something like this. And my BMNR position, I think, is maybe 3% total right now, which I built it up pretty quick. And the reason why I'm doing the BMNR piece is as a result of the leverage that they have and the financial manipulation that they can do. It is all dependent on the underlying crypto, because if Ethereum went to 0, then BMNR would pretty much follow in a very quick fashion. But I think the leverage that you can command can yield you better results. And in my case, where I'm selling options, it pumps up the volatility. I can't sell options on Bitcoin. I can't sell options on Ethereum and generate some cash there. I can stake my Ethereum, but that's pretty much it. But I can on BMNR or SBET or MicroStrategy or any of these companies. So that's one reason. Whether you deem it to be a good reason or not, that's up to you. But that's a big reason for somebody like myself who's selling options on it, is the volatility and the liquidity and the leverage that they have.
And to also make it clear, we both own crypto too. It's not like we're like no crypto. We're just going to buy the stocks. It's kind of like why not just hoard cash instead of investing in American companies? They're just different in my mind. So plus, we already went into the institutions can only invest in certain crypto in certain vehicles. This is one of them. In some funds, Roths and IRAs are very common in the United States. You cannot own crypto directly. So it's I don't know. I like it. SBET thoughts, and then SBET over BMNR. SBET is a sports betting company that got into Ethereum. They're not quite a pure Ethereum treasury play. I've not given a lot of consideration to SBET. I think that I probably would be if it wasn't for BMNR, but I prefer like the strategy is incredibly clear there versus SBET. It's a mix of a lot of things, including sports gambling, which is something that I just don't want to really be invested in, especially with what Robinhood is doing on the prediction market. Like, have you been keeping track of that at all? I'll show you. Remind me. I'll show you something after this. It's crazy, dude. Right up your DJ alley. But yeah, regardless, I prefer more of a pure play here. Tom Lee, I think, brings a lot of credibility to the project as well. It makes sense. Like, hey, undervalued, buy back your stock. Maybe overvalued based on your NAV. Other directions. So dilute and get more. So I don't know. That makes a lot more sense to me than I don't really like conglomerate businesses as much. Businesses can transform into a conglomerate like Tesla is doing. But like this is one of the reasons why I ended up not going into Nebius long term. Is like their core product is great, and probably all the other conglomerate stuff, or a lot of it, is probably really solid. But I just like more of the focus in that pure play. So I could be wrong. Maybe SBET's a great bet. Honestly, if Ethereum does great, both of these companies will do well. And yeah, Barry has a good point here. Tom Lee has shares in SBET. So Nick actually says I've got it backwards. It's a pure play and does not do the sports betting anymore. That may be right. I just know what they did in the past. So it just, well, that's the other thing too, is I'll need to look into that, and that may be perfectly valid. But I don't really like when companies completely pivot away from what they did before into a new direction. It just gives me red flags. I don't necessarily think it's a red flag here, but like C3AI is one of those that's like the worst of the worst. They're probably going to do it again before time is out. So Brock says, wouldn't be shocked if SBET and BMNR merge at some point. Could be. Yeah. Okay. So prediction market. You'll like this. So Robinhood has been rolling out a lot more options. Now they cannot call it National Football League, Major League Baseball, and so forth, just because of legalities. But they are being able to offer a lot of college football, which is a major gambling vehicle, and also, man, how far back does this go? Might not be able to find it. Well, yeah, I don't know why I don't have it in my portfolio or my Twitter thread. But in essence, like NFL contracts, college football contracts, this is a vehicle prediction markets that probably will, over the next year, get close to that $100 million annual run rate that Robinhood likes to talk about for their products. A lot faster than a lot of people expect, just because, especially so, college football is heavily betted upon. Maybe more so than any other sport. I'm not sure, other than like one-time events like Super Bowl and boxing. So yeah, I just don't like the business. So even with Robinhood, I argued for like maybe having it in a separate app or separate place in the app. But yeah, I got my preferences, but I'm still invested in Robinhood. So yeah.
So I just posted about this. Yeah, I just posted about this. I put it in the private chat. Maybe you can throw it up. Charlie in our chat made me aware of this. This is quite interesting. It's a rumor, but somebody basically is saying that Hims on September 15th is going to launch the new testosterone compounds and at home labs. If you look at the source tweet right there, they say basically that staff have already been trained on as of the 1st of September, which of course we've been waiting for this launch for a while now for Hims as a big growth driver for them. I don't know that this is legitimate or not. It's just a random account on X saying things. But if staff have already begun training on it, then I could see how a leak could be possible. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I said tongue in cheek, like, okay, I guess I'm not writing covered calls this week because just on the off chance that this is real, then I could see a real pump in the stock. And I also saw Zach's question there as well, asking if I think Hims in the $40 range, holding $40 at 6:34 p.m., whether it was a sign of strength or weakness. And I think it's a sign of strength because what I don't want is I don't want this thing flip-flopping from 70 to 30 in a matter of weeks. It's just not conducive to a legitimate long-term investment for many people. I wanted to build a base of strong investors that believe in the long-term prospects and that won't be shaken out with every single news piece that comes out. And so I think that it holding at 40 and consolidating there to move higher is bullish. There's real risks for Hims not being able to meet their growth targets this year, them not being able to beat their estimates. And that should be taken into account when you're investing in this company. I think that they can and they will, but it's not as much of a slam dunk as it was at the beginning of the year when they'd never missed a single quarter before, right? So can consolidate and build higher is bullish as opposed to bearish.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is their next major product that they're launching. So sooner rather than later would be good, especially since it'll hit that third quarter quite nicely as they ramp that out. Last question here: S&P 500 rebalancing. We've seen them once this year stand pat and say no moves. We've seen them add 4 names at one point this year. And 3 of the 4 were really good, solid companies. And 1 I'm not going to name because I'm still mad about that. AppLovin is, I believe, the largest market cap of any publicly traded company that's eligible for the S&P 500 is not in it. Robinhood is like number 3, I think. I'd have to double check. It might be number 2 now. And Vert is one that's been on the radar too. Vive is another good candidate. There's a lot of other good candidates there. SoFi is possible. So who do you think gets in, Tevis?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say SoFi just for the memes, but I think with Interactive Brokers having been the last one to get in, being in financial services, like I could see some non-financial services company making it this time around. Of course, I want to manifest cheaper Robinhood shares. So if it does happen to be Vive or any of these other companies, AppLovin, like that'd be great for me because I can then go ahead and increase my Robinhood position, which I've been wanting to do for weeks now. But I mean, I think Robinhood is long overdue as well. Like it's been several quarters since I think, I don't know, Roy, you would know better than I, like 4 quarters or something where they just haven't been in.
I thought it should have gone in at the beginning of the year, and it's not. The stocks continue to go up. Talking with Tanner and with Amit, they were thinking it was less likely because IBKR got in. And I'm not of that mindset. I think that, if they're thinking about IBKR, probably they had to heavily consider Robinhood. And I don't think it makes sense that the S&P 500 put them in. Good company, legit company. They already got Coinbase in there too. Like, I don't know. It seems like that they're willing, because they also recently got in Block to be overweight at this time in fintech and financials. So there's a scenario, and I really hope this happens because it's going to be so fun, Tevis, that both SoFi and Robinhood get in at the same time. If that happens, it's probably a quarter or 2 too early. But I mean, SoFi is doing great things too. The growth is real. The market cap is real. But of those, like if only one made it, I would say AppLovin probably. I don't know why they've been disrespecting it. They ended up getting in the trade desk like 3 or 4 months ago over AppLovin. And I mean, that's fine. It's a really good company. Jeff Green's great. But AppLovin, it's obvious. Robinhood's obvious. Vertiv as well. So we'll have to see. It wouldn't shock me yet. Vroon, you're absolutely right. I actually thought about making a position at one point, and I decided not to. But yeah, it'd be great if there's a lot of companies in there that are just not amazing companies anymore, that are way past their prime, that wouldn't even be eligible by today's standards. And so it'd be nice to see actually all three of those get in. I did find it, so no more questions, but I'll just throw this up. Juan Rodriguez does these each day. He's probably got one up from recently too. This is just the one I found for college football. This is the actual revenue that Robinhood makes, not anything like that. This is net. 39 million contracts traded. The day after that was going to be around 700,000. I expect Juan has a more recent post here too. He made a PayPal post. That's nice. Yeah, well, he's got it right here. So 844,000, and this is over, basically the weekend there, college football. They're going to make a lot of money off of this. I don't think that's priced in. So I love you saying that you're looking at any dip in Robinhood as an opportunity to add. Yes, Tevis. If it goes to 14 again, load up. I will never let you forget. I'm sorry.
I think being born an idiot is not a choice. Dying an idiot is, and I think not holding Robinhood at 14 the first time around is something I'll forgive myself for. But if it goes back to 14, you better know I'm bloating up.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. Brock asked.
Yeah, let's cover that last.
It's TBD. We're gonna try to figure it out. I'm doing a lot of travel for 2 different events next week, so we'll have to see. I love this though, so I hope it gets fitted in the schedule. You guys are the best audience in the world, and Tevis, you're the best co-host. So you guys have a great night.
Yeah.